and currently working in government setting in MP state as a CHO and practicing natural birthing for village women. So over to you, Ms. Sunita Dangi.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Ma'am, PPT, please.
Okay. Bani, are you sharing or you want me to share?
Ma'am, I'm just trying. If my network is fine.
So Sunita, you require some help with the video?
No, sir. Bani,
I think Sunita requires some help with the video. Dr. Vani, just say.
yes.
Yeah, that's
Is it visible? Yeah.
Yeah, it's visible.
Please go ahead.
So I'm going to deal with measures to enhance patient safety in natural birthing center. Okay. Our vision and mission to provide safe, sensitive, and skilled care to mother and to enhance the health and well-being of the newborn, to build mother's self-confidence and handling childbearing by empowering her with appropriate information, knowledge, and skill and support. जैसे कि आप सब जानते हैं नेचुरल बर्थिंग एक एंटायरली डिफरेंट प्रोसेस है और इसमें मैं अब आपको बताऊंगी किस तरीके से हम नेचुरल बर्थिंग्स में पेशेंट सेफ्टी को एनहेंस करते हैं. So birth is a normal human process, not a biomedical one. प्रेगनेंसी हम सबको पता है कोई डिजीज नहीं है, एक हमारे बॉडी की फिजियोलॉजिकल प्रोसेस है. और आजकल हमने इस चीज को जो काफी मदर्स जब प्रेग्नेंट होते हैं तो शुरू से मेडिकेशन वगैरह स्टार्ट कर देते हैं, काफी ट्रीटमेंट लेना शुरू कर देते हैं. उनको लगता है कि वो प्रेग्नेंट नहीं है, जैसे कोई डिजीज उनके अंदर हो गई है. तो हम लोगों का यही विजन है कि हम स्टार्टिंग से मदर को प्रिपेयर करें, कुछ काउंसलिंग के थ्रू, एजुकेशन के थ्रू उनको हम सपोर्ट करें और चीजें बताएं कि क्या उनकी बॉडी के साथ क्या चीजें हो रही हैं और नेचुरल बर्थिंग किस तरीके से उनको हेल्प कर सकता है नॉर्मल बर्थ के लिए. सो व्हाई वी नीड टू टॉक अबाउट दिस. हम आखिर बात क्यों कर रहे हैं इस बारे में कि क्या जरूरत है कि हमें नेचुरल बर्थिंग के बारे में बात करनी पड़ रही है मदर्स को. तो अभी देखने में आया है कि काफी सारी ऑलमोस्ट 24,000 प्रेग्नेंट वुमेन इन इंडिया, लाइक इन गुजरात, दिल्ली, मध्य प्रदेश, और एस्टिमेटेड जो सी सेक्शन होता है ऑलमोस्ट 5% to 15% होता है, लेकिन अभी देखने में आया है कि 65% रेज हो गया है इन इंडिया और ऑल्सो इन अब्रॉड. काफी इसका हाई रेशियो हो गया है. तो जो मदर्स होती है उनके अंदर फियर होता है कि जो पेनफुल होगा, उनका लेबर कैसा होगा, तो कुछ तो विलिंगली ही सी सेक्शन के लिए जाते हैं. हम मानते हैं कि 5 to 15% सी सेक्शन होते हैं, कहीं कहीं मेडिकल कंडीशंस होती है जिसमें हमको सी सेक्शन करना होता है, लेकिन काफी सारी मदर्स विलिंगली जाती हैं क्योंकि उनको ये लगता है कि लेबर पेन्स काफी वर्स्ट होंगे, क्या मैं ये कर पाऊंगी, क्या मैं बेबी को नॉर्मल डिलीवर कर पाऊंगी. और वो इसके लिए सब्स्टिट्यूट ढूंढते हैं कि अगर मैं मुझे पेन्स अगर मैं बियर ना करूँ तो इसके अलावा मैं क्या कर सकती हूँ. तो या तो वो इलेक्टिवली सिजेरियन सेक्शन में जाते हैं या फिर वो एपिड्यूरल्स वगैरह के लिए जाते हैं. और हम नेचुरल बर्थिंग में जब हम लोगों ने इस चीज को स्टार्ट किया तो हमारा विजन और मिशन यही था कि हम मदर्स को प्रिपेयर करें, हम उनको जागरूक करें कि वो खुद, उनका जो सेल्फ कॉन्फिडेंस है, वो खुद अपनी जो शक्तियां होती है उनको जाने कि हाँ वो ये चीज कर सकती है. इसलिए हमने नेचुरल बर्थिंग को स्टार्ट किया है और अब हम इस चीज को आगे ले जाना चाहते हैं ताकि ये जब कुछ प्राइवेट सेटिंग्स में था, अब हम इसको गवर्नमेंट सेटिंग्स में लेकर आ गए हैं और हम चाहते हैं कि हर एक मदर्स तक ये नेचुरल बर्थिंग जो हम कर रहे हैं ये मदर्स तक पहुंचे. और किस तरीके से हम इसमें मदर और उनकी बेबी को सेफ रख रहे हैं ये मैं आपके साथ अभी डील करूंगी इसमें. ओके. मिडवाइफरी मॉडल ऑफ केयर. तो हमारे यहाँ पास यहाँ 3 मिडवाइफरी मॉडल ऑफ केयर है. फर्स्ट वन इज मॉनिटरिंग द फिजिकल, psychological and social well-being of the mother throughout the child-bearing cycle. Second one is health-related education, counseling, prenatal care, care during labor and delivery, and postpartum support. Third one is minimizing the technological intervention, identifying and referring women who required obstetrical attention. हम मदर्स को एंटीनेटल पीरियड से जब हमारे पास रजिस्टर्ड होती है, सबसे पहले तो हमारे पास कुछ क्राइटेरिया होते हैं नेचुरल बर्थिंग के, जिसमें हम सिर्फ लो रिस्क मदर्स को चूज करते हैं और उन मदर्स को थ्रू आउट द लेबर हम प्रिपेयर करते हैं। उनकी प्रेगनेंसी होती है तब से हम उनको प्रिपेयर करते हैं नेचुरल बर्थिंग के लिए, उनका माइंड सेट करते हैं, माइंड मेकअप करते हैं, काउंसलिंग करते हैं, एजुकेशन करते हैं और ट्राइमेस्टर वाइज हम उनको बहुत सारे एक्सरसाइजेस, योगास, प्राणायाम, आसन, गर्भ संस्कार, मेडिटेशन और न्यूट्रिशन थेरेपीज, इन सब के बारे में काउंसलिंग करते हैं और बताते हैं कि किस तरीके से जब वो लेबर में जाएंगी तो उनकी बॉडी के साथ क्या क्या चीजें होंगी और किस तरीके से वो उनको ओवरकम कर सकते हैं। और साथ ही हम उनके फैमिली मेंबर यानी जो मदर का कंपेनियन होता है उनको भी प्रिपेयर करते हैं कि जब मदर चाइल्ड बियरिंग प्रोसेस में जाएगी तो वो किस तरीके से उस मदर को सपोर्ट करेंगे ताकि मदर को ये ना लगे कि वो अलोन है, उसके साथ कोई नहीं है। और जब फैमिली मेंबर्स उसके साथ रहते हैं या उसका हस्बैंड हो सकता है, मदर इन लॉ हो सकती है, मदर हो सकती है, इवन मिडवाइफ भी हो सकती है। जब हम लोग प्रैक्टिस कर रहे थे और अभी कर रहे हैं तो हम मदर से पूछते हैं कि आप किसको अपना कंपेनियन रखना चाहेंगी ताकि हम उनको प्रिपेयर कर सके आपके साथ। तो काफी सारी मदर्स कहती है कि मैम हम हमारे कंपेनियन के रूप में आपको रखना चाहेंगे क्योंकि मैं आपके साथ ज्यादा कंफर्टेबल हूँ, एक ट्रस्ट हम उनके साथ गेन करते हैं। तो ये यहाँ पर पेशेंट सेफ्टी को एनहेंस करता है फिजिकली प्लस साइकोलॉजिकली। मदर का एक जो वेल बीइंग हमारे साथ बन जाता है, ट्रस्ट हमारे साथ बन जाता है। तो जो भी चाइल्ड बियरिंग प्रोसेस होती है वो उसको पहले से पता होती है कि अब मुझे मैं अब इस प्रोसेस से गुजरूंगी और अब ये चीजें होंगी। तो ये काफी सारी हेल्पफुल होती है। साथ में हम ट्राई करते हैं कि जो भी टेक्नोलॉजिकल इंटरवेंशन होते हैं उनको मिनिमाइज करें, जैसे कि कंटिन्यूअस सीटीजी मॉनिटरिंग मदर्स को हम अवॉइड करते हैं। जैसे फर्स्ट स्टेज ऑफ लेबर में अगर हमारे पास मदर होती है तो हम एवरी 15 मिनट में फिटल हार्ट साउंड सुनते हैं ये देखने के लिए कि सब कुछ ठीक है या नहीं। और जब मदर सेकेंड स्टेज ऑफ लेबर में जाती है तब हम आफ्टर एवरी कॉन्ट्रैक्शन मदर का फिटल हार्ट रेट चेक करते हैं। तो यहाँ पर हम इस चीज को मिनिमाइज करते हैं ताकि वो फ्रीली घूम सकती है, उसका न्यूट्रिशन वगैरह मेंटेन कर सकती है और उसके माइंड को ऐसा ना लगे कि उसको कहीं चीज किसी कमरे में उसको हमने स्टक करके रख दिया है। तो इस यहाँ पर भी हम मदर को सेफ करते हैं, मेंटली हम यहाँ पे मदर को सेफ रखते हैं। दूसरी चीज, अगर हमको लगता है कि कभी कहीं भी मदर को हमको रेफर करने की जरूरत पड़ रही है तो हमारे पास एक क्लियर पाथवे होता है जहाँ हमें पता होता है कि हमें कब, कहाँ और किसे मदर को रेफर करना होता है ताकि हम कोई अननेसेसरी चीज मदर के साथ ना हो सके। नेक्स्ट प्लीज। ओके, व्हाट इज normal physiological birth? Birth that is powered by innate human capacity of the woman and the fetus. When the physiological process are not disturbed, human mothers have the capacity to reach a very high peak of the hormone oxytocin soon after birth. This peak of oxytocin is vital, first because it is very necessary for safe delivery of the placenta without any blood loss, and because oxytocin is undoubtedly the main hormone of love. जब हम मदर के साथ उसकी फिजियोलॉजिकल प्रोसेस को डिस्टर्ब नहीं कर रहे हैं, यानी कि हम मदर को इंड्यूस नहीं कर रहे हैं, हम उसको हेल्प कर रहे हैं खुद से। जो ऑक्सीटोसिन है, हम जानते हैं कि ऑक्सीटोसिन ही हमारे लेबर को इनिशिएट करता है और थ्रू आउट लेबर हमारी बॉडी के अंदर पीक लेवल पे रहता है। जब मदर डिलीवर करती है अपने बेबी को तब हम बेबी को मदर के एब्डोमेन पे डिलीवर करवाते हैं और वहीं से बेबी को सून आफ्टर बर्थ ब्रेस्ट फीडिंग इनिशिएट करवाते हैं और निप्पल स्टिमुलेशन के थ्रू ऑक्सीटोसिन एक पीक लेवल पे चला जाता है और वहीं से यूट्राइन कॉन्ट्रैक्शन काफी अच्छे हो जाते हैं और प्लेसेंटा डिलीवर हो जाता है, मदर पीपीएच में नहीं जाती है। हमने देखा है कि काफी सारी मदर्स लाइक अगर 100 डिलीवरीज हमारी हुई है तो 100 में से 0.3% लाइक 3 ही मदर्स शायद हमारी पीपीएच में गई होगी और काफी अच्छा उनका ब्रेस्ट फीडिंग रहता है, प्लस नो पीपीएच के साइंस कुछ भी नहीं उसमें हमको देखने को मिलते हैं। So physiological birth is an involuntary process related to activity in the primitive brain and body structure. It occurs based on a woman parasympathetic nervous system is operational and she is in a state of trust. A dark, calm, quiet, and almost solitary surrounding serves the mother best for labor and birth. Birth is not a voluntary action, like pressing the on button and switching the off button. Like a woman in the labor or giving the birth need a protection from any factor that may stimulate the neocortical structure of the brain. A labor will process when a woman is restful, calm, and not stimulated. This is why most women will experience labor at night when it is dark and they are alone. ये चीज देखने में आती है कि जब मदर काम होती है, रेस्ट पीस में होती है, तो उसका लेबर प्रोसेस जो होता है वो काफी अच्छा होता है, क्योंकि उसको कोई स्ट्रेस नहीं होता है। जिस तरीके से हम लोग उसको स्टार्टिंग से प्रिपेयर करते हैं, सारी चीजें उसको बता देते हैं, और जब हमारे पास मदर होती है नेचुरल बर्थिंग सेंटर्स में, हम मदर को एक ऐसा एटमोस्फियर देते हैं जो कि उसके लिए सूदिंग हो, काम एंड क्वाइट हो। यहाँ पर हम मदर की सेफ्टी इस तरीके से इनहेंस करते हैं कि उसको मेंटल कोई प्रेशर नहीं होता है, और उसकी बॉडी जिस तरीके से प्रोसेस उसने इनिशिएट करी है लेबर के लिए, वो एक सूदिंग सी बन जाती है। वहां पर कोई कार्डियक एक्टिविटी हमको डिस्टर्ब नहीं मिलती है, लाइक कोई भी बेबी डिस्ट्रेस में हमको नहीं जाते हुए मिलता है। और अगर ऐसा लगता है कि कहीं ना कहीं थोड़ी सी फिटल हार्ट रेट डिस्टर्ब हो रही है, हम मदर्स को बोलते हैं डीप ब्रीथिंग एक्सरसाइज के लिए, और जैसे ही मदर इस चीज को स्टार्ट करती है, ये देखने में आता है कि जो कार्डियक एक्टिविटी है वो वापस एक सूदिंग पैटर्न में चलने लगती है। ओके, व्हाई प्रिपेयर मदर फॉर नॉर्मल फिजियोलॉजिकल बर्थ? जब हम सबको पता है कि प्रेगनेंसी कोई डिजीज नहीं है, एक फिजियोलॉजिकल फिनोमिना है, तो फिर हम क्यों मदर्स को प्रिपेयर कर रहे हैं? हम इसलिए प्रिपेयर कर रहे हैं टू मेक देम स्ट्रॉन्ग, एम्पावर्ड, स्ट्रेस फ्री, fearless, and recognize their body and mind ability to understand the birth process. हम मदर, सबको पता है अपनी अपनी शक्तियां सबके अंदर होती है, लेकिन मदर उस टाइम पे काफी फियर में रहती है, काफी रूमर्स उसको सुनने में आते हैं, काफी मिथ्स उसके साथ में होते हैं। ऐसा नहीं करो, ऐसा होगा, दूध मत पियो, बच्चा अंदर चिपक जाएगा, ज्यादा चाय मत पियो, बच्चा काला पड़ जाएगा। बहुत सारी चीजें मदर के साथ होती है, तो इसलिए हम मदर को हमको प्रिपेयर करने की जरूरत होती है। कुछ लोग बोलते हैं कि ज्यादा घूमना नहीं चाहिए, बेबी ऊपर चला जाता है, ज्यादा लंबी पूरी सांस नहीं लेनी चाहिए क्योंकि बेबी ऊपर चढ़ जाता है, नीचे नहीं आता है। तो ये सारे रूमर्स और ऐसे मिथ्स जो होते हैं, इनको हटाने के लिए, हमको मदर को स्ट्रॉन्ग बनाने के लिए, उसको एम्पावर करने के लिए, उसको राइट्स है कि वो जब डिलीवरी के लिए, जो बर्थ के लिए वो जाती है, तो उसकी जो पोजीशंस होती है वो अडॉप्ट कर सकती है, उसके कंपेनियन को उसके साथ रख सकती है, और उसकी बॉडी और उसके माइंड की जो एबिलिटी है वो उसको स्ट्रॉन्ग कर सकती है। इसलिए हमको मदर को स्टार्टिंग से प्रिपेयर करने की काफी जरूरत है, और हम मदर्स को नेचुरल बर्थिंग में इस प्रोसेस के थ्रू प्रिपेयर करते हैं। दीज आर सम पिक्चर्स ऑफ आवर क्लिनिकल, जब हम मदर्स को स्टार्ट एंटीनेटल पीरियड में कुछ काउंसलिंग और एक्सरसाइज बताते हैं। नेक्स्ट, ओके, हम मदर्स को यहाँ पे कुछ योगास, प्राणायाम और एक्सरसाइज के बारे में बताते हैं। कुछ ट्राइमेस्टर वाइज हमारे योगास रहते हैं, फर्स्ट ट्राइमेस्टर, सेकेंड ट्राइमेस्टर एंड थर्ड ट्राइमेस्टर। हम मदर्स को बताते हैं कब उसको क्या करना है, जिसमें हमारे यहाँ पे कुछ मेडिटेशन योगास होते हैं, कुछ पेल्विक फ्लोर एक्सरसाइजेज होती है, और काफी सारी चीजें। मैम मैं भी आगे पिक्चर्स में आपको दिखाऊंगी, आप तुरंत कर सकते हैं। ओके, दीज आर सम exercises and pranayam, Brahmari, अनुलोम विलोम। नेक्स्ट, ओके, कीगल एक्सरसाइज। कीगल एक्सरसाइज काफी हेल्पफुल होती है मदर को। जब एंटीनेटल पीरियड में मदर कीगल एक्सरसाइज करती है, तो ये उसके पेल्विक फ्लोर को और ब्लैडर को काफी स्ट्रॉन्ग करती है, ताकि जो मदर को बार बार यूरिनेट करने का जो अर्ज होता है वो उसको कंट्रोल कर सकती है। नेक्स्ट, these are the pictures of exercises. Next, lunges। ये एक और मसल्स को हेल्प करता है, स्क्वेटिंग। स्क्वेटिंग काफी मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट एक हमारा एक्सरसाइजेज है, जिसको हम मदर को बोलते हैं जब थर्ड ट्राइमेस्टर में मदर आती है। तो क्योंकि जब एक्सरसाइजेज मदर करती है, ये काफी उसका पेल्विक फ्लोर ओपन अप हो जाता है और बेबी को हेल्प करता है बर्थ कैनाल के थ्रू आने के लिए। मेडिटेशन। मेडिटेशन हेल्प करता है मदर के स्ट्रेस को मैनेज करने के लिए। और उसको क्वालिटी ऑफ स्लीप देने के लिए थ्रू आउट द प्रेगनेंसी उसको जो भी उसके साथ जो भी स्ट्रेस होते हैं, जो भी प्रोसेसेस से वो गुजरती है, काफी हेल्प करता है मेडिटेशन उस चीज को कोप अप करने में। दीज आर सम एक्यूप्रेशर्स जब हम अप्लाई करते हैं, मदर जब लेबर में जाती है, जब फर्स्ट स्टेज ऑफ लेबर स्टार्ट हो जाता है मदर का, जब हमें कुछ एक्सरसाइज और कुछ एक्यूप्रेशर भी स्टार्ट करते हैं जो कि मदर के पेन को रिलीफ कर दिए, काफी हद तक पेन रिलीफ में हेल्प करती है मदर के, और मदर को एक सेटिस्फेक्शन फीलिंग भी देती है। मूविंग ड्यूरिंग लेबर। These are the some pictures of natural birthing center. Okay. गर्भ संस्कार म्यूजिक, ये काफी इम्पोर्टेंट चीज है। जैसे कि हम जानते हैं कि जब बेबी मदर के वूम्ब में होता है तो वो मदर को सुनता है और उसको फॉलो करता है। तो हम ये इसके बारे में भी मदर्स को बताते हैं कि आप पूरे आपके जब प्रेगनेंसी आपकी रहती है तब आप कुछ मंत्रास सुनिए और अपने बेबी से बात करें। और हमने ऐसा देखा है मैम कि इवन 8 मंथ में जब बेबी ब्रीच पोजीशन में या ट्रांसफर पोजीशन में होता था, अगर मदर उससे बात करती है और उसको बोलती है कि बेबी प्लीज आप अपनी पोजीशन जो है अडॉप्ट कर लें लेबर के लिए, तो हमने उसमें देखा गया है कि काफी सारे बच्चों ने जब 8 मंथ में भी बेबी अपनी सिफेलिक पोजीशन में आ गए थे लेबर के लिए। तो इसलिए हम मदर्स को बताते हैं गर्भ संस्कार के बारे में। नेक्स्ट, अरोमा थेरेपीज होती है ड्यूरिंग प्रेगनेंसी, लेबर एंड पोस्टपार्टम। मदर्स को काफी वॉमिटिंग्स वगैरह होती है स्टार्टिंग जब फर्स्ट ट्राइमेस्टर मदर का होता है। कुछ अरोमाज होते हैं, एसेंशियल ऑयल्स होते हैं, इसकी हेल्प से भी मदर वो जो उसका हाइड्रेशन है उसको मेंटेन कर सकती है, क्योंकि अगर एक्सेसिव वॉमिटिंग होगी तो फिर वो डिहाइड्रेट हो जाएगी और भी कुछ चीजें होंगी, तो हम तब भी बताते हैं। प्लस जब मदर लेबर में होती है तब भी हम इन चीजों को यूज करते हैं ताकि वो अपने स्ट्रेस जो उसको होता है लेबर का उसको कम कर सके। और इवन ये एक्यूप्रेशर में भी यूज करते हैं हम ताकि पेन रिलीफ में हेल्प कर सके। नेक्स्ट, नेचुरल बर्थिंग बंडल, ये पूरे बंडल्स होते हैं। हम इसमें स्टार्टिंग से एंटीनेटल पीरियड से लास्ट तक जब मदर डिलीवर हो जाती है, इवन पोस्ट पार्टम पीरियड में भी हम सारी चीजें यूज करते हैं। उसकी काउंसलिंग, उसकी एक्सरसाइजेस, योगाज, फैमिली मेंबर साथ में रहते हैं उसके। तो ये कुछ हमारे बंडल्स है जो हम फॉलो करते हैं इनको। दीज आर सम पोजिशंस फॉर लेबर, मदर पोजीशन चूज कर सकती है। मैम नेक्स्ट, these are also the midwife work at natural birthing. You can see कि लेबर में जब मदर्स को तुरंत कर रहे हैं। ओके मैम नेक्स्ट, नेक्स्ट, ओके, फ्रॉम बर्थ टू एब्डोमेन एंड चेस्ट, स्किन टू स्किन कांटेक्ट, ये काफी नेसेसरी होता है। जब हम मदर को डिलीवर करवाते हैं तो बेबी को मदर के एब्डोमेन पे डिलीवर करवाते हैं। इसके काफी सारे एडवांटेज है। एक तो बेबी को हम हाइपोथर्मिया से प्रिवेंट कर सकते हैं। दूसरा, बेबी उस जिस एनवायरनमेंट से आता है उसी एनवायरनमेंट में, क्योंकि वो मदर का टच को समझता है, तो जब वो मदर के एब्डोमेन पे आता है तो वो उसके अंदर एक सेपरेशन वाली जो फीलिंग आ जाती है वो नहीं आती है। प्लस मदर और बेबी के बॉन्डिंग यहाँ पे स्टार्ट हो जाता है। और जैसे कि मैंने पहले कहा था कि हम इनिशिएट करवाते थे ब्रेस्ट फीडिंग को, जो कि ऑक्सीटोसिन को रिलीज करने में भी हेल्प करता है, जिससे कि मदर को पीपीएस से हम बचा सकते हैं। तो ये भी पेशेंट सेफ्टी को इनहेंस करता है। मैम नेक्स्ट, ओके, डिले कोड क्लैंपिंग एंड कटिंग, हम डिले कोड क्लैंपिंग करते हैं आफ्टर 1 to 3 मिनट। और यहाँ हम ये बोले कि जब पल्सेशन स्टॉप हो जाता है तब हम क्लेम करते हैं कोड को, ताकि बच्चे के अंदर जो बच्चे को हम प्रिवेंट कर सकते हैं न्यूनेटल एनीमिया से, क्योंकि आयरन डेफिशिएंसीज यहाँ पर डिक्रीज हो जाती है। 60% ऑफ ब्लड जो है बेबी रिस्टोर कर सकता है। और अभी हम एक चीज फॉलो कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे, फिजियोलॉजिकल कोड क्लैंपिंग। फिजियोलॉजिकल इन द सेंस जब प्लेसेंटा पूरी तरीके से डिलीवर हो जाता है तब हम कोड क्लेम करते हैं, उसमें 100% बेबी जो है वो आयरन को रिस्टोर करता है। ठीक है मैम। Okay, midwife uses her expertise and intuition and wisdom. Ma'am, next. There are 10 mantras for midwife. यहाँ पे जो लेबर रूम में जो midwives होती है उनके लिए कुछ मंत्रास है। First is wait and see. Second is build her next, get her off the bed, justify intervention, listen to her, have a companion of women's choice, keep record, trust your intuition, be a role model, be positive, give her constant reassurance from birth to abdomen, chest to chest and skin to skin. These are the picture of my sub health center. ये कुछ गवर्नमेंट सेटिंग में जहाँ पे मैं अभी वर्क कर रही हूँ वहाँ के कुछ पिक्चर्स है जो मैं मदर्स को एजुकेट कर रही हूँ, बता रही हूँ इसके बारे में। ओके मैम। मैम नेक्स्ट, advantage of natural birthing. Natural birthing help women to control of her body, help to empower the mother and deeply satisfied. There is no loss of sensation and alertness, help to reduce the risk of fetal distress, faster recovery, and more emphasis on breastfeeding and skin contact. These are some advantages. Okay. We emphasize on exclusive breastfeeding, which is more important. And okay, ma'am, this is last year. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sunita Dangi, for a very comprehensive natural birthing experience for all of us. It was definitely an eye-opener for all of us, and the various aspects that you shared and the details that you shared and how it is relevant in the safety of the mother as well as the baby. Thank you once again, Sunita Dangi. Now I would request Gina to play that video. Should I go to the next speaker?
Just wait for a moment, ma'am. I think she is just trying to play it. I think we can go to the next speaker, Susie ma'am, by the time figure out the video. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now I request Sister Achla, who's a nursing superintendent of Kalavati Saran Children's Hospital. She is a national faculty for National Collaborative Center on Facility-Based Newborn Care. She was awarded the National Florence Nightingale Award for being the best nurse in 2019 by the Honorable President of India. And she is also the External Quality Assessor of Public Health Facilities, NHN, National QI Coach from NQOC in India. Over to Mrs. Achla for her deliberation on overcoming the fear of contracting COVID in healthcare workers and using it as a catalyst to drive safe and high quality of care. Sister Achla, please.
Good evening, everyone. My slides are visible, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you, Susie ma'am, for your nice words. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Vikram Datta sir, President NQOCN and Director Professor Department of Neonatology LHMC for giving the nurses this opportunity and a great platform of NQOCN POCQI community of practice, and for organizing this webinar on occasion of International Patient Safety Day and giving me the chance to speak up for health workers safety. So today's my topic is overcoming the fear of contracting COVID in healthcare workers and using it as a catalyst to drive safe and high quality of care. So healthcare workers, they are the most valuable agents in this battle against the pandemic. While the manufacture of ventilators and other equipments could be escalated, but the healthcare workers cannot be created at short notice, and so protecting them against the infection and safeguarding their health and morale is very crucial. So there are many challenges faced by the healthcare workers during the pandemic, like they are overworked, risk of being infected, shortage of human resources, modified settings, issues with the infection control practices, dead body handling, lockdown challenges, difficult choices, and bed allocation problems also, and impact of social distancing. So we will see what all are the fears of contracting COVID-19 in healthcare workers. As we see in policy, it is very uncertainty whether the organization or institution will support the personnel and family if they are getting infected. And in people also, there is a very high stress and fear of carrying the infection home and also infecting their family. And there is a heavy workload, and during the lockdown, there is a problems with the lodging and transportation problems. And there is a fear of stigmatization, lack of training issues, and they are separated from the family and are isolated during the duties also. And regarding the place related problems, there is a problem with the hospital capacity. And during this pandemic, because the infrastructure is not as such developed, there are various kinds of lacunas in the infrastructure, and healthcare resources, they are very scarce. And also regarding the hospital equipments and ventilators related problems are also there. And it has been seen also, there is a fear in red and orange zone, but there is more fear in healthcare workers in green zone also, because as we can see, the positive cases, they are also coming in the green zone. And it is very obviously seen that there is a lack of designated donning and doffing rooms available. And regarding the procedure related problems, as such, because there is a frequent change of duties, like in red, orange and green zones, so there is a stress and fear among the healthcare workers. And also sometimes it is a lack of access to up-to-date knowledge of IPC practices and regarding the donning and doffing processes. And again, sometimes there is a use of excessive or unfamiliar PPE, which increases the risk of self-contamination and also increases the risk of disease acquisition. And there is a changes in routine medical procedures in COVID wards, or also as such in the COVID NICUs also. So what measures taken to overcome these fears? Like updating the nurses with all the guidelines issued by the Government of India. And also as an administrator, we have to forward all the directors' messages or any circular to all the nurses on WhatsApp group. And as the CNE facilitators, they will go to the wards, and frequent training sessions are also conducted. And it is very important that the judicious use of PPEs has to be ensured. And for the healthcare workers, whenever they are posted in COVID units, their hotel accommodation and lodging facilities are also taken care. And immediate quarantine for high-risk contacts, that is really important. And contact tracing committees has to be formulated in each institution so that the contacts can be traced. And it is very important to have a constant supportive supervision by the seniors. Now regarding patient safety educational model. Here we will see the learning category, that is communicate effectively. And the learning objective is to establish the goals, policies, and strategies for service improvement, and knowledge components to be understood before demonstrating relevant performance, that is articulate clearly and put into practice policies and management plans for improving the patient safety and quality of services provided. Now, regarding the performance features like delegating as appropriate, empowering the staff to communicate openly, and inspiring. So the importance of human factors in healthcare, because a major contributor to adverse events in the healthcare, all the healthcare workers need to have a basic understanding of human factors principle. So what is human factors? It is a study of all the factors that make it easier to do the work in the right way. They have to apply whenever the humans work, it applies. And also sometimes it's known as the ergonomics. It designs improvements in the workplace and the equipment to fit human capabilities and limitations. And also it makes it easier for the workers to get the work done in the right way, and also decrease the likelihood of errors occurring. So in human factor, we'll see it acknowledges the universal nature of human fallibility and the inevitability of errors. It assumes that error will occur, but it designs things in the workplace to try to minimize the likelihood of errors or its consequences. So we will see the situations associated with an increased risk of error, because in the cases of COVID-19 or in any kind of epidemic, we will see there can be an unfamiliarity with the task, or sometimes the healthcare workers, they are inexperienced, there is a shortage of time, inadequate checking, sometimes they are not acquainted with the procedures, and poor human equipment interface can be there, and especially if it is combined with the lack of supervision. So the individual factors that predispose to error, like it is a limited memory capacity of a human beings, and further it is reduced by fatigue, stress, hunger, illness, language or cultural factors, and hazardous attitudes. So here we can see if the person is on stress, then the performance of a person decreases. If it is a low stress, then again it is a boredom, and high stress also, and with the anxiety and panic, the person's performance decrease. So do not forget, if you are hungry, angry, late, or tired, you have to take care of yourself, that is, you have to halt. Then we will see how to overcome the fear of contracting COVID-19. Keeping the healthcare workers updated on the latest information that diminishes the fear of uncertainty and negative emotions associated with the virus. And this entails frequent information sessions on specific details of the virus, practicing the ethical decision makings, and also how to effectively use the hospital resources. And we have to, by ensuring that the entire team maintains the same understanding of information and protocols, so standard guidelines should be there. And also additionally, establishing the break time will allow the healthcare workers time to take care of themselves. As it is very tedious job, they should have some break time so that they can relax and they can take care of themselves. And also creating healthcare staff reserves to relieve those on duty before exhaustion. So always in the hospital setup, we should have a reserve stock of our healthcare workers, so that if any case, if anyone is infected or on quarantine, so the other person can replace. So this can be done in several ways, including incorporating outside registered nurses into the hospital system, or re-employment of healthcare workers who recently retired. And regarding how to overcome the fear of contracting COVID-19 in continuation, because this global crisis, it has fostered fear among the healthcare workers. The healthcare workers, they are scared of their co-workers, their families, their friends, communities, and ultimately the country. Despite this fear, they continue to fight on the front lines to execute their job while in a persistent state of survival mode in order to protect everyone around them. So in order to win this war against COVID-19, we must come together on a united front to support those on the front lines, and we must help them fight off any potential short or long-term effects during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. So this also requires the implementation of accessible counseling services and effective measures to care for their mental well-being in order to preserve their health. So the level of stigma associated with COVID-19, it is based on three main factors, because COVID-19 is a new disease about which many things are still being discovered. And when something is unknown, people are worried, which leads to fear. And rumors or fake news also give wrong information and spreads the fear. So what to communicate, and communication platforms like there should be emphasis on the hand hygiene, respiratory hygiene, social distancing, home care and home quarantine, and also monitoring the symptoms. And displaying of IEC material at appropriate places is also very important. So it is a healthcare package given by the WHO for the health facility management, and it says that it prepares the COVID-19 at your own healthcare facility, and every institute should have a triage station at the healthcare facility entrance prior to any waiting area to screen the patients for COVID-19. And also there should be like posters, flyers and other reminders that has to be displayed regarding the good respiratory and hand hygiene, so that the visitors, all other people also see to it. And they have to be alert for if there is any symptoms like cough, fever, shortness of breath, then they have to be observed. And it is very important to have alcohol based hand rub or soap and water hand washing stations readily available for the use of healthcare workers and for the patients and for the visitors also. And how to protect the healthcare workers from COVID-19, they have to wear appropriate PPE. And if they are performing any aerosol generating procedures, at that time also they have to wear N95 mask. And it is also to remember that they don't have to touch their eyes, nose, mouth and with the gloves or bare hands until proper hand hygiene has been performed. And if any healthcare worker, they are having any symptoms, they have to take advice from the physicians. So regarding coping with the stress, and it is very normal to feel sad, stressed or overwhelmed during this crisis time. So you have to talk to to whom you trust, or to a counselor also you can consult. And you have to maintain a healthy lifestyle like proper diet, sleep, exercise and social contacts with friends and family. And if you are having any concerns, then always you talk to your superiors, supervisors or your administrators. And these are the 5 moments for hand hygiene, like before touching a patient, after touching a patient, before engaging in clean or aseptic procedures, and after body fluid exposure, and after touching patient surrounding, you have to maintain hand hygiene. Now regarding assessing the potential for exposure to COVID-19 in the workplace. So the key exposure factors in the workplace, they are, does the work setting require close contact with the people potentially infected with the COVID-19 virus? And do the specific job duties require close or repeated or extended contact with people with known or suspected COVID-19? So as we can see, the high potential for exposures, they are most probably, it is in the hospital setup, healthcare settings, laboratories, and even in the autopsy suites also. And whenever the person is performing the activities like in the bronchoscopy, sputum induction, or giving the or working with the specimens in laboratories, and some of the procedures in which the aerosol generating activities are there, these all areas, they are the high potential for exposure. So in healthcare settings also, we have to refer to the government guidelines, whichever are given to us, and we have to follow the infection prevention IPC practices. So the key steps for preparing for and managing the epidemics in the workplace, like first of all, we have to preparing for the threat and implementing preventive measures and implementing the continuity of operations plans And we have to also consider the impact on the workers, like will a healthcare worker be get quarantined if they had any high risk exposure, and if any healthcare worker they are not having leaves, then what can be done for that healthcare workers. So various other also concern we have to take care. So administrative controls and work practices to reduce the exposure, like enable the sick healthcare workers to stay homes, and minimizing the close contact among the healthcare workers and patients, and also limiting the number of staffs present for high potential exposure tasks. And training part is really very important. So basic hygiene and social distancing also we have to explain to all the healthcare workers. And regarding the key elements in COVID-19 workplace plan, so what all things we need to have? First of all, we have to see the management leadership and employee participation. And we have to see the hazard prevention and control, risk communication, education, and training. So for protecting the workers, it is a hierarchy of controls. It starts with the most effective method to protect the workers. Initially, we thought that only wearing the PPE we are protected from getting the infection, but it is not so. As we can see, it is in the hierarchy of control, it is in the least effective method. It is very important, but it is not the only method. We have to take other measures also, like administrative controls, change the way people work, their behavior, their attitude of doing the things. And in engineering controls also, isolate the people from the hazard and replace the hazard. And in elimination, we can see physically remove the hazards. So in engineering controls for high exposure potential jobs in healthcare and laboratories, there has to be a negative pressure isolation rooms has to be maintained, and biological safety cabinets or HEPA filtration can be there, and UV irradiation systems can be maintained. And to adjust policies to reduce the exposure also, we have to encourage the workers who are ill to stay home without fear of reprisals or loss of pay or any other benefits. And they can use the email, phone, or teleconferencing instead of face-to-face contact. So decontamination and infection prevention IPC practices has to be maintained, and the healthcare workers, they have to use the respirators whenever there is a potential for aerosol transmission, or they have to wear the appropriate PPE. So the PPE for jobs and high potential exposure like face or eye protection, gloves, gowns, respirators, and N95 mask has to be used. And this is very important thing regarding training and drills. It must be hands-on and frequent, and it should not be primarily computer-based or lecture-based. It must include an opportunity to drill the actual process of donning and doffing PPE and respirators, and it should include a trained observer, or a buddy system can be there, so that whenever they are doffing or donning, the other person can observe that if there is any breach or not. So regarding the prevention in all work settings also, these are some of the preventive guidelines, like wash hands and removing gloves whenever it is soiled. And you have to limit the unnecessary visitors in the wards also, and maintain your physical and emotional health with the rest, diet, exercise, and relaxation. And regarding the mental health and stress also, you have to practice stress reliefs. Whenever you feel anxiety, then you can do deep breathing exercise, or you can read, or whatever you feel like, you can do it to release your stress. So it is one of the article in the JAMA network, in which it is saying that understanding the and addressing the sources of anxiety among the healthcare professionals during COVID-19 pandemic. So what are the requests from the healthcare professionals? What they want? Their request, as they say, hear me, like they want to say what all their problems, we have to listen to them. Protect me means to reduce the risk of healthcare professional for acquiring the infection. Prepare me by their providing the trainings and support. And support me we have to provide support that acknowledges human limitation in a time of extreme work hours. And also we need to support their personal and family needs. And lastly, care for me means we have to provide holistic support for the individual and their family. And as such, the person is, all the healthcare workers, they feared and they are very anxious. So we need to take care of our healthcare workers. So in conclusion, I will say the fear is commonplace with the COVID-19 pandemic. Healthcare workers, they are not immune to anxiety and fear. And in fact, they may suffer higher rates of fear than others. We must address the psychological impact of facing COVID-19 to further mitigate the spread of infection. And we must remember that the fear is a reaction and courage is the decision to trust tested infection prevention practices to provide the highest standard of care in the safest environment. So the patient safety is the cornerstone of high quality healthcare, and much of the work defining patient safety and practices that prevent harm have focused on negative outcomes of the care such as mortality or morbidity. So the nurses, they are critical to the surveillance and coordination that reduce such adverse outcomes, and much work remains to be done in evaluating the impact of nursing care on positive quality indicators such as appropriate self-care and other measures of improved health status. So these are some of the references I have taken. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Achla, for that very detailed presentation on overcoming the fear of contracting COVID in healthcare workers, and also using it as a catalyst to drive safe and high quality care. I was very enlightened to see your fishbone analysis on what all causes the fear, and also the next few slides on how to mitigate the fears. Thank you once again, Achla. And now we come to the last of our discussions, and that is video to be played. Gina, please play the video, please.
Yes.
Hello, myself Gajanan Shrisagar. I am a school teacher by profession and today wanted to share.
We are not able to see the video. Gina, we are not able to hear you.
You are not able to hear, ma'am?
No.
This is the maximum volume.
No, Gina, voice is okay, but we are not able to see the screen. Your screen.
Should I play myself? Is it visible now?
No, no, it's not visible yet.
Oh, no, it's not visible. We can see a Zoom screen.
Okay, okay. That means.
Yeah.
Ma'am, should I try to play again?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
Mani.
Yeah, Bani, please go ahead.
Mani, go ahead.
Please let me know.
Stop
Yeah,
sharing.
yeah, it's audible now. Yeah.
Good.
Hello,
Good.
myself Gajanan Shrisagar. I am a school teacher by profession and today wanted to share with you experience of our stay at a newborn care unit. Due to unavailability of adequate facility for our twins pregnancy, we had to move to another near district for delivering our newborns early with low birth weight. It was a tough period as we had lost one of our baby during stay at NICU, which stressed my wife and also affected her health. But thanks to the healthcare team of newborn care unit who consult us and help us. One of the incidents I remember which my wife told me was that a baby had aspirated milk in midnight when the mother was feeding him and was shifted on a ventilator and could not recall what happened after it. But this incident shocked all the mothers. But a healthcare staff taught us how to take care and identify damage signs in babies, and they used to teach us at regularly intervals, which helped us a lot after discharge. Also, the team of healthcare workers were quite stressed, fatigue, exhausted, and overburdened that they throw out the night shift of the incidents. I believe everybody has a role to provide safe care. Everyone on team has a role and voice to speak. It takes entire team to keep patient safe. No one is perfect. People are going to make mistake, but we need each of its back. But today I wanted to speak of for our health care workers safety in this COVID-19 time as they support many of newborns and their families in care. These real life heroes are doing extraordinary things in extraordinary times to help women, men, and children whose lives are ended by crisis. So let us help to help them. For patient safety, they need support from all authority to give their best. I think there has to be culture at every hospital for patient safety. And last, I pray to the God to save real life heroes' life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashish, for that very lovely video of how a healthcare worker, father of twins who lost a baby, also was under stress, and how the healthcare workers sort of helped alleviate the stress. That was a wonderful job, and this was Gajanan Shirsagar from Aurangabad. Now over to Dr. Sushil Srivastava, Secretary NQOCN, for his closing remarks.
Thank you,
Sushil. There are some question and answers. Sushil, can you just take them in the Q&A and post them to panelists and then close?
Sure, definitely. So, Bani, have you sorted out the questions, or I have to go through the chat box? I'll try to see.
Sushil, not in the chat box. There are just 3 questions in the Q&A.
Okay. Sorry.
You just click on the Q&A.
Yeah. So there is a. So I will put the question to the panelists. We are very lucky to have Sister Susie, Sister Gina, Sister Achla, Sister your Shiba. I will put up these questions and let us see what's the expert opinion. So the first question is from an anonymous attendee. The question is, why is there no leadership on taking quality of engineering, especially sanitation? That is, pest control is essential. So why there is no leadership on taking quality of engineering and sanitation? Is the question clear? I will first request Sister Susie to coordinate for this question. So they want to know why there is no leadership on taking quality of engineering, especially in sanitation. Because according to the questioner, pest control is also a challenge in hospitals. We all see that from time to time. So anybody, Sister Achla or Gina, can perhaps can come up.
Sister Achla will be better to answer.
Okay, so we'll request Sister Achla to have an idea why there is no leadership on taking quality of engineering.
Sir, actually it depends on the institutions. I think in some of the institutions, it is taken care by the administrators or the AMS level. These are things like pest control and other things. In our institution, it has been done on the regular basis, but maybe in some of the places, it is not being done. But it is not that regular. Sometimes there is a gap also, because actually no designated place, no designated person is assigned as such for the pest control and other things, and these are on the contract basis things. So I think in that.
Yeah, I think Sister Achla has very nicely put up the challenge. So in many hospitals, if the your administration is quite proactive for these challenges of sanitation and your housekeeping and pest control, then these challenges are handled nicely, even if they are outsourced. But in majority of the facilities at times, because these are outsourced, these services, many times at the administrative level, the sensitization and taking up of the challenge may be a little less. So it all depends on the leadership at the administrative level who are looking after the housekeeping and sanitation and other things. So based on our experience, the best idea would be to identify proactive people. They may be from the nursing, they may be from the doctors, they may be from the administrative side, and focus on these challenges. Thank you for beautifully answering. We have another
Plus,
question.
Dr. Sushil, there has to be a designated person to do this.
Yeah.
So when there is a designated person, then they will do it.
Okay, so that's also an important cue that at times a designated person for housekeeping, pest control can be identified. And that would help. Now, the other question which I'm going to ask is asked by Preeti, and the question is, can we reuse N95 mask and how? So I will again keep it to the panelists as to how they can use N95 mask again and again. Reuse, in fact.
Sir, can I answer that?
Yeah, please, Gina, go ahead.
Sir, at the initial stage of this pandemic, resources were limited, and at that time we were asked to use N95 3 times in 15 days or like that. But when the supply has started coming, so there is no restriction to use N95 mask for a shift. So we are being given in COVID wards. We are getting N95 masks for every shift. There is no restrictions for N95 masks. Okay. But in other green zone areas, where to say the judicial or to have the judicial use of PPE, appropriate PPE, wherever required, the grassroots level, frontline workers are using N95 masks. But latest guidelines says in green zone we are not supposed to use the N95 valve mask. There are guidelines from Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Then reuse of mask, it depends on the availability, sir. So if it is available in your facility, you can use for single shift. Otherwise, you need to reuse it like the guidelines were given in the initial stage, like wrapping it in a paper. But it is not like that. Now we have enough supply and we are not reusing N95 mask.
Okay. So thank you, Gina, for clarifying. So
another thing, sir, N95 mask is only used wherever aerosol production is there, particularly in the ICUs. So there is no need of actually common people or even the healthcare workers working in this green zone or wherever there is no aerosol production to use N95 masks. They can just use a medical mask.
Yeah, very nicely put, Sister Susie. Yeah,
that saves a lot of N95 masks to be used when there is an aerosol production.
So the message from the panelists to others people are that please do not misuse N95. N95 use guidelines are very clearly defined in our Government of India guidelines. They have to be used in ICUs and in aerosol generation procedures. In other places, a strict adherence to use of routine surgical mask, social distancing, hand hygiene, and taking precautions is good enough. However, in case of shortage of N95, as Sister Gina put up, there were some guidelines from Government of India earlier as to how you can recycle by giving a gap, keeping it a clean, your paper bags of individual users and reusing it for after a gap of 2 to 3 days. However, at present stage, most of the hospitals have a proper well-defined N95 usage policy and the supply is also in good quantity.
Yes.
Now we have another question, although it's a general question, but maybe I'll just put it up. The question is from Sarita Nirvan. When trained workers aren't available, the work is done by incompetent staff available. What is the way out to avoid such situations? So basically, they want to know if untrained staff is available in some particular area and training, they have not been trained, how to go about or how to avoid such situations.
Sir, I would like to say something.
Yes, please, Sister Achla.
Sir, actually it happens when newly recruited nursing officer, whenever they are coming, we can't say they are untrained. Whenever they come into service, they are registered nurse and registered midwife. They have the license and they have the degree. Without it, we are not going to put in the system. But initially, whenever they are new to it, they may not be knowing the things, because when they are fresher, maybe from other institutes, like in our hospital, if they are not trained in pediatric setup, then initially they are having some problems. But to solve that issue, our CNE facilitators, they are taking few sessions for them, so that they will get acquainted, or the senior persons like ANS or senior nursing officers or sister in charges, they will take sessions and they will guide them regarding the procedures and other things, so that they will do the work. It is not possible if someone is new and not knowing the thing, but we have to get them trained. That is our job, so that they can work effectively. So we can't avoid the situation that the person is not knowing anything. So we have to train them. That is the thing. And I think.
Okay. I think there is another clarification from the same person. They want to know about the nursing orderly in particular, because when she said untrained, she was meaning nursing orderly.
Sir, I would like to say that even in the procedures, whatever the nursing orderlies can be trained, we can even train them for certain procedures that they are allowed to do. So once the training is over, they can do those procedures, whatever they are allowed to do.
So I think Sister Susie and Achla have very nicely answered your query. The main trick lies in the people who are already trained. Remember, there has to be an induction process. So whether it's a nursing orderly or a nursing staff, it will be unfair on our part to call them totally untrained. They have received some basic training, they have the degree, they join, then it is the responsibility of the unit to have some induction process where there is some supervised sensitization and an induction. And most of the units who have this policy, they do not face this problem. And by doing this, they keep themselves safe, their patients safe, and they also prevent medication errors. So most of these units, or in fact, we will suggest that all units should have some basic induction process or sensitization process. You can also have CNEs. I know many of the hospitals like Kalavati Saran, they have got a regular CNE program going on, where a regular induction and training happens. So you can modulate your training accordingly. Now, there is another question, although it's not directly related, but yes, it is regarding patient your healthcare safety. Enoxaparin needle was pricked accidentally to some staff. Is there any risk? So besides routine needle prick injury risk, which is already there, you know, the needle prick injury has to be reported, has to be followed a certain SOP. Enoxaparin per se, if it is not injected, should not create a challenge. And if there is another high risk in the patient in form of other challenges, then maybe you can check for a coagulation profile. But according to this question, the risk associated with general needle prick injury, I think my sister experts would agree that if you have a needle prick injury for anything, then you have to follow the SOP of your hospital or your unit to tackle the needle prick injury. So I will not take the next question. Many times while handling COVID patients, PPE kit gets compromised. How about the risk level as skin gets exposed? So essentially they want to know if by during wearing or donning or doffing, the PPE gets damaged or it is open. Sometimes some you realize, oh, it was opened, or there's some, the skin got exposed. So how about the risk level? What is the risk level?
Sir, there is a risk assessment format available.
Okay.
The person who fears that he has been exposed or come in contact with the COVID-19 patient, then that person can approach the quarantine committee and fill up that form. According to the filled up form, only we make the assessment whether it is low risk or high risk.
Okay, so that's a very important information. So you can always go to the government. I think, Gina, it's available on the government website.
Yes, we have a committee. We have a committee in our institute.
Okay.
So any person fears like had any contact with the COVID-19 patients and was not using appropriate PPE, then he comes to our committee and we give them form. There is a standard format for that. They fill up the form and a committee will decide their level of exposure and high risk or low risk.
Okay. So there is an expert level committee which decides that depending on the damage to the PPE and rate of exposure, they decide the risk and advise accordingly to the patient. So the message is, don't be afraid, don't be scared. If any accident happens, please contact your supervising authorities and there would be a grievance addressal and your challenges could be addressed to. Then there is a last question. In the absence of nursing aid work, in the absence of nursing, aid work is done by Sulabh workers.
The absence of nursing aids.
Yeah, nursing aids. Yeah, sorry.
Work
yeah.
is done by
work is done by Sulabh workers. So the person wants to know the opinion of the team here. I think many times it's a challenging situation in COVID. Many times
that is not right.
That is not right. So
because nursing aides are trained and Sulabh workers are only trained for the sanitation level.
Yeah, so we will advise you to please connect to your supervising authority, try to work it out as a solution, and because they would not be equipped technically to handle the risks involved in the care area. Now we have a question from Stella. We are all playing vital roles in suffering and pain. I, Stella, a nursing staff of Aurangabad, wanted to just know, even though training and awareness of infection of COVID-19, why do there is less awareness or acceptance to understand the adverse effect of it and how it can be improved? So training and awareness of infection for COVID-19, why do there is less awareness or acceptance to understand the adverse effect of it and how it can be improved? I think she wants to know regarding that despite a lot of sensitization against COVID risks and all that, still many people are not accepting or are not aware about the risks associated with COVID-19. This is what I understand.
Yeah.
So what is the reason? How it can be improved?
Actually, sir, it involves individual differences. There are people, there are personalities who are very carefree, and whatever education has been given, they don't want to take it. Or, or it could be even like they have not actually been read, or they have not heard of, or they have not been sensitized to the adverse effects. And that is why they are taking the high risk behaviors.
So yes, Sister Susie, I think you have very rightly addressed this situation. It is not only in trained nurses and doctors, it is also seen in common public too. So many times, even if you teach or you try to sensitize, it depends on individual and human factors, where people tend to get relaxed with time. They tend to become a bit easygoing. Okay, the virus maybe has gone. It is seen all across the world, and even in earlier pandemics too. That was seen in public also, and maybe in health workers also. So it is entirely up to that. But having said that, repeated reinforcement.
Yes.
And repeated, you can say, ensuring and like Sister Achla gave you a very good example of buddy system. So many times you are taking off, but you are in a hurry. You forget about how to go about the doffing process. If there is a buddy system, somebody is watching you, he can reinforce. Your team leader can reinforce daily about the risks and the precautions to be taken for the benefit of the patients as well as the health workers. So yes, these are challenging times. And I think this is a big crisis for health workers, but it's also a big opportunity, because now we are getting more sensitized towards patient safety and our own safety. You can say charity begins at home. If health workers can't keep themselves safe, how can they keep the patient safe? So that is why this year's patient safety has been rightly said that health workers should be kept safe. So I think that finishes our question. And if Sister Susie allows me, I can give a vote of thanks, and
Yes,
we
sir.
can end this such an interactive session. So I wish to thank our guest of honor, Dr. Rati Balachandran, for ADG Nursing Division, for inaugurating this very interactive session and encouraging and giving her viewpoint and important inputs regarding patient safety. I also want to thank our chief guest, Dr. Sumita Ghosh, Additional Commissioner, Child and Adolescent Health, who also gave a very important perspective regarding patient safety and health worker safety, more importantly, in a present COVID pandemic. I wish to thank our speakers, Ms. Shiba Pais, Ms. Sumita Dangi, Sister Achala Kumar, Nursing Superintendent Lady Harding, Staff Nurse Ashish Baltilak from Aurangabad, for providing us a very unique patient attendance view. And it was really quite comforting to see, in spite of a severe loss by the patient attendant, he still understood the great work done by the team and was ready to go hand in hand. That's what happens if there is a good communication. I also wish to thank Sister Susie Sarajon, Senior Faculty, College of Nursing, LHMC, and governing body member of NQCN. Sister Gina Pradeep, Senior Nursing Officer and CNE Facilitator at Kalavati, and your Treasurer of Nationwide Quality of Care Network, for arranging and coordinating all this activity, which was very, very interactive, very useful for all. I wish to thank Dr. Bani Singh, our improvement advisor for NQCN, doing all the hard work behind the scene, helping us not so tech savvy people to be appearing good on the Zoom platform. Thank you, Bani. I also want to thank Dr. Vikram Datta, our President, Nationwide Quality of Care Network, for opening a very, very important aspect of COP chapter, that is the nursing wing. And I will request Dr. Vikram to ensure that this wing grows further with the help of Sister Susie, Sister Achala, Sister Gina, and helps our nursing friends who are our backbone and our main strength in ensuring patient safety and health worker safety. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, spectators. Without you, it would not have been a success. I'm very happy to see more than 80 people still logged in and enjoying this interaction. Thank you all, and have a good day and be safe.
Thank you, everybody, for your patient listening. The 1 hour went to 2 hours.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Okay. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Leave me.